Thank you very much, and ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome again to FII. Please turn your attention to the main stage so we can continue our next conversation. Gentlemen, please take a seat.
Thank you.
Your next session is called Securing the Future, and when I first initially started thinking about this conversation, I questioned whether it was going to be about global aviation, whether it was going to be about space or defense. And I think the caliber and talent of the panel that we have in front of you means that it can indeed be about all three. So let's get the conversation right underway. Joining me is His Excellency Salem Al-Qubaisi, the Director General of the UAE Space Agency. Sir, welcome. Pierre is Chairman of the Board of Bombardier. Dr. Brendan Nelson is Senior Vice President, Boeing, and the President of Boeing Global. He also served as Australia's former Defence Minister, so great to have you. And Ambassador Stefano Pontesorvo is Chairman of Leonardo. Ambassador, thanks for being here. So I think it's important to point out first that in the defence arena, recent tensions and conflict in our region and abroad have really highlighted the crucial nature of defence and the role that, of course, aviation plays in our security future. It has also highlighted the need for a well-regulated defence industry here on Earth and in outer space as well. So, Your Excellency, I thought we could begin our conversation with you. Space technology, exploration, tourism, all advancing very rapidly now. What is the agency working on, and how do you keep the UAE ahead of the curve, whether it's in satellites or whether it's in Mars or even on the ground in the UAE and across the region?
Thank you, Daniel. I want to start out thanking our host for having me today and to be joining an esteemed colleagues on this panel. Back to the question, I need to start out saying that there is a main driver in our government to change, develop a new knowledge-based economy. And that's, spread out and reflected in many of the mainstream strategies within the UAE. Space sector is chosen to be an enabler for this transformation. With that said, there have been, a sequence of major flagship projects, space projects, especially in space exploration, where the long term of these projects can ensure covering our grounds in developing our capacity for young Emiratis in the technology and science of space. That's one side. The other side is making sure that there is an organization as the UAE Space Agency play also a regulator role for the sector to ensure high standard levels and safety levels for our future projects, and ensuring that we have a flux through a grant system for our young entrepreneurs who want to venture in the space sector.
We'll talk about some of the opportunities and challenges in the space sector in a moment, but I wanted to move it over to Pierre as well and ask you about some of the trends that you see within the industry at Bombardier. I speak with aviation executives regularly. What we've seen, I guess, post-COVID is a real rebound in the aviation sector. Seems like the order book has improved, travel demand has been recovering as well, routes are opening up. What are you seeing in terms of orders and deliveries?
Well, it's very good right now, and you're right. From COVID, there was a refocus on private aviation because of the flexibility, and also because a lot of routes from airlines shut down because there was no volume. So private aviation is always an enabler to get the place where people need to go for working. So we've seen the development of the market, particularly here in the Middle East, since the way people travel, where they want to go with all the mega projects here, they need to go see the development of the projects. They need to travel more in the region. So we really see a change of pattern. Of course, business aviation is still very much, the US is still very much the big market, but there's great opportunities around the world.
So how many aircraft will you deliver this year, and how does that compare to target?
Well, we'll be right on target. I think one of the challenges since COVID has been the supply chain. Unfortunately, companies had to let go people. They lost some expertise. So meeting the target has been a challenge, but I'm happy to say that Bombardier will be right on target. But it takes a lot of follow-up. and have developed trust with our suppliers around the world, people that we've had long-term relationship with. We can be transparent on what are the challenge and really be able to move parts in an efficient way.
Okay, fascinating. And Dr. Nelson, Boeing is also a global leader when it comes to commercial and defense aerospace. Walk me through some of the trends that you're seeing in the sector right now. What's driving demand?
Well, look, firstly, the FII, in my opinion, is a reflection of the economic and social transformation, if not revolution, occurring in the kingdom. Vision, a plan, and a deep commitment to bring in as much expertise as possible to deliver a better future. Absolutely outstanding. In terms of the trends, our vision is to connect, protect, and explore the world and beyond. And in every part of that, as Pierre's just said, we've consistently got it wrong in forecasting the demand for commercial air travel following the pandemic. And at the moment, our biggest challenge is supply chains keeping up with our production of commercial aeroplanes to deliver to our customers. In the defence world, for reasons that are not good, the demand for defence investment from countries across the world is significant. The Stockholm Peace Research Institute tells us that last year defence investment increased 4%. We're looking at anywhere from $200 to $700 billion a year of increased defence investment over the next 5 years. Japan, for example, will be the third largest defence spender in the world within 5 years. And that, of course, is creating business for the Boeing company and for our competitors. And then in space, communications, commercial travel into space, and of course the militarisation of space, which brings with it both opportunity and significant risk. And as we manage the geopolitics on Earth, which are extremely complex, we have to be focused also on agreements about how we responsibly use space. And amongst the many challenges, this is probably the most complex operating environment for business since the end of the Second World War. But amongst our many challenges beyond supply chains and a major energy transition and the existential challenge of a changing climate is the labour market, talent, actually getting people who have the right skills and also a broader social perspective on what we do into our workforces.
Dr. Nelson, can you expand on how you see the global security situation today? I might ask you to put your former defence minister's hat on, because we see tensions between the United States and China. There is tensions over Taiwan, the war in Ukraine, now Israel's war against Hamas in Gaza too. How would you characterize the global security and defense situation today?
We are living through the most consequential geopolitical realignment in our lifetime. Henry Kissinger, of course, a giant, a doyen of diplomacy, on the occasion of his 100th birthday, described this as a world of disorder. He described the world being riven by the Sino-American rivalry. And yes, and you've nominated some of those geopolitical risks and tensions that exist. We've seen a nation invade another nation, Russia into Ukraine, for something we thought we'd left behind at the end of the Second World War. We have turmoil, of course, in the Middle East as we speak, and of course we have tensions in the Indo-Pacific. But you know, I go back to what the President of the World Bank said in his outstanding interview in the opening session, when he's asked, is he optimistic, covering these and other issues? He said, without doubt, he said, I am, and it's young people. And especially for young people in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, in this part of the world, that optimism and belief in a better future is what we have a responsibility to nurture, which I think in a very big way the FII is achieving to do.
So there we have it. Dr. Nelson has outlined some of the challenges. Ambassador, what does that mean for Leonardo's defense portfolio moving forward? How are you leaning into this?
Well, we're doing well, unfortunately, because I always say I'm temporarily the chairman of Leonardo, permanently an Italian citizen. I much prefer my government to invest in schools, infrastructure, education, rather health, rather than the stuff that we produce. But that's the life, Dr. Nelson has, and I subscribe word by word to what you said. We are a very articulated business. We go from airplanes to tanks to underwater to satellites to cannons, electronic stuff. We make $4.5 billion a year of helicopters. So it's unfortunately, the bottom line is looking good. Going forward, I'm not sure it is, because we are, as I say, we need to invest. We invest every year, like all defense or aerospace companies, but we are between bullets and bytes. So where to invest? The Ukraine war has shown us that traditional warfare is still important. The tank, which we thought we didn't need, many of us dismissed our tanks. So the Italian government is rebuying frantically, and so are others. Tanks, because you need the firepower to halt whoever doesn't like you, so to speak, without going into diplomatic niceties or complications. But also you have the intermediate future, which is it's unmanned. I'm told that over 10,000 drones are used a week in Ukraine, and that kind of changes the game plan. Plus AI, which needs to be applied to everything we're doing. Actually, we are also becoming a cyber by design company. Meaning that whatever you build, satellites, even your tanks, the most mature technology, those have to be cyber secure, because the electronics is so sophisticated that you don't need to stop, the motor. You need to disable the systems, and you're a sitting duck. So it's a complicated future.
Can I ask you, from a European perspective, how do you see the conflict in Russia evolving from here?
Negatively. No, it's not. It's really complicated, because it has, for us, I think it's personally. I've been 9 years in Russia. I lived 9 years in Russia. I speak Russian. I have a lot of Russian friends. I have a lot of Ukrainian friends. It's stalling. I hope nothing dramatic happens while we're all looking elsewhere in this region. It's degenerating into the frozen conflict. Winter is coming. It's not a good time to fight anywhere, especially at those areas. I think that the solution on which a lot of good people are working needs to be half political and half territorial. It's the classical kind of unsatisfactory for everybody. We're not there yet. Nobody's listening. I understand that fully well, because a conflict, it's a nasty conflict. So I think we're going to have to, be patient and try to reduce at minimum what really matters, which is the loss of human lives.
Dr. Nelson, can I quickly just have you reply to that, and then we can move on?
Well, in terms of the outcome in Russia, Russia has invaded an independent nation state, and the response has been what perhaps we hadn't expected, beyond Ukraine itself fighting to defend its territory and in the process of regaining it. The expansion of NATO and the response of Europe and a number of European countries has been fast and indeed impressive. In terms of the outcome, though, it's very hard to speculate. The less human life that is lost in the process, the better for all of us. And one would hope that President Putin and those who prevail upon him will finally persuade him that he should not continue with it. The whole thing is a tragedy on every level.
Your Excellency, as we see these conflicts on the ground, talk to me about how you're viewing the potential conflicts that could arise in outer space. Is this something that you think of quite regularly?
Oh, that's true. And I hope it doesn't get there. I'm a firm believer that space is a new frontier, not a new front for military action. The international instruments that everybody in the world are part of it give place space as an opportunity as an free access to all and a viable economical resource to be explored. If we take this as a zero-sum game and take our conflicts to space, none of that will happen. This is an important factor that we think there is an opportunity, and there are challenges. I don't say that there aren't any challenges in space, but having, international platforms to discuss it, such as this one, such as Abu Dhabi Space Debate that you participated in last year, address these issues, come to consensus, and in more often other forums there might be a consensus on how to have a resolution on them. But it's never a good idea to think of space as a new front. I hope it stays as a new frontier for opportunity and development.
And it all comes back to international collaboration.
That's
and
true.
The second point would be regulation as well. What's needed first?
And that's what we're taking, as a responsible agency, seeing this in the future. We're trying to address all the aspects of these challenges. The major one, at hand is space debris. And it's an important problem that we need as a collective in the world to address. To keep space, free access to everybody in the world for international developing countries, debris is an important aspect to actually deal with. Many technologies can help in taking down, but we're thinking we have to start even before. In our regulations, we explicitly put requirements for our operator to have a clear, safe decommissioning phase. Otherwise, we'll not license that. That's the responsibility of a regulator that bring on the table to tackle this issue. Now, we are supporting also other initiatives in technology development and research for, taking down debris or studying ways of doing that. And there's, a lot of technologies out there in the world. Smart young people are doing that, and we're trying to do that as well through many of our initiatives. I can highlight the UAE Space Academy, where we're trying to get new, fresh graduates and bring those cohorts to upskill them and hopefully migrate them to our space economic zones, where we have incubator programs for their smart ideas to help out in what we see for the future of space.
How is the UAE Space Agency having a material impact on the ground? A lot of these space programs are basically designed to inspire, educate, and encourage interest in STEM, for example, on the ground. Would you say that the investment that the UAE has made in its space program is paying dividends in real time on the ground?
That's an important question. It's always a question of, is it worth the investment? And I see the return of our investment now in our young, as you mentioned, bringing them aspiration to STEM fields to study in that, but also more recent, where we see that in the contracts that we're having through the projects we're doing back in our sector, where there are indigenous industries that are either from aviation side or IT side, are seeing the value of taking the risk and moving out of their comfort zone and venturing into space industry, which is not, it's not a big endeavor, but it's a strategic one that needs to be, studied and prepared for. And we're there as an agency to help out.
Okay, very interesting. Let's shift the conversation over to commercial aviation now as well. Pierre, I want your take on some of the trends that you're seeing in automation and electrification in the space. Is this something that Bombardier is leaning into?
Well, first of all, automation is very much part of how we think in the future. When will we see airplanes with single pilots, with no pilots? All that technology is available today. The other part is how we monitor the airplanes when they fly. All the technology, we gather the data today, but frankly, with now, new technology, ability to analyze, to predict, using AI. We work with university to say to university, yes, you're working on AI, but really what you need to do is work with us to apply it to a product and use our data to help us design better products. So for me, this is very, very good news that it gives us a platform to get collaboration between universities, companies, and government, and really push new ways. We're in a very conservative world in aviation, and it's not that tomorrow morning we're going to change completely. We'll evolve step by step, but that evolution right now is going through softwares. Airplanes are software systems today.
What about the pace of innovation, though? Because is it fair to say, and this might be a cheeky assumption, but is it fair to say that the innovation inflection point probably does happen at a business jet level rather than a large passenger plane level? Dr. Nelson might disagree with me, but what's your take?
You know, I speak a lot about that with my colleagues in commercial aviation and also with customers, because we're smaller volume, because we're by definition need to be more flexible because we sell products one person at a time. We're able sometimes to introduce technology in our business that will benefit everyone in the industry. But the same thing is true, given the amount of hours that commercial airplanes fly, we learn from commercial airplane. In the end, it's about working together. It's about being close and exchanging, and this collaboration is happening every day.
So why does it still take me 17 hours to fly from Dubai to the west coast of the United States? And it has done for the last 10 years.
Oh yeah, and you know, we're coming up with an airplane today that is in final stage of development that flies 0.94 the speed of sound. So the next venture will be over the speed of sound. But right now the focus is a lot more about making our airplane more environmentally friendly, looking at what are going to be the right energy for airplanes that fly short. You talked about battery. I think short distance is definitely battery. Then when you get into a regional, it's probably hybrid, battery and a combination. And for long range right now, it's about new fuel, because we need to go fast, we need to go high, and we need to go long. So I understand the interest of going faster, but I think right now as an industry, we need to focus about how to make the airplanes more environmentally friendly. Aerodynamic. We have an airplane right now we call the EcoJet. It's just a model. It's 20 feet wingspan. But we're flying this model to learn on how to make a full wing airplane and reduce the drag by 25%, 25 to 30%. That's significant. So there's a lot to be learned besides just saying we need to change the engine technology. We need to evolve the whole platform. And that's really what the focus is on. Right?
And getting the aviation economics right as well, I guess, and making sure it's still attractive and affordable for the flying public.
Exactly.
Dr. Nelson, can you speak to where Boeing is innovating in this field? And I think Pierre makes a really great point, right? Because it's all about finding the commercial angle to innovation at the end of the day, making sure it's green, making sure it's still affordable, making sure the technology's in the right place, making the plane go faster so I can get to the west coast of the United States. What's your take?
You make it sound so easy. Firstly, coming back to space and the value of it, amongst many things, the technologies that we develop for use in space and in space actually have very practical applications for us here on Earth. And the other thing that it does, it inspires the next generation to believe that the impossible is possible, and encourages them to come into the aerospace industries. In terms of the innovation is in our DNA. It's the same with Bombardier. Without innovation, we don't have a future. So we invest about $3 billion a year in research and technology and innovation. So autonomy, which you asked about, is safety. And that's how autonomy should be seen. And a lot of the discussions here at the FAO have been about technology. Magnificent, inspiring conversations. The technology's hard, but what's much harder is how human beings understand and adapt to that technology. Pierre just said the technology exists in autonomy today for one single pilot flights or no pilots. Try and explain that to the average person who gets on a commercial aeroplane. So for us, we are well advanced now, and in fact we're working through certification for an autonomous electric-powered air taxi for use in a suburban environment. And with the greatest respect to the kingdom, it'll be great to see Whisk flying around here. So we're working through that, and one of the challenges will be people getting in it. I'm happy to be one of the first passengers, by the way. And then at the other end, as Pierre says, in order to produce a new aeroplane, a new generation of aeroplane, you have to be satisfied you've got at least 20, maybe 30% improvement in efficiency. So decarbonising the aviation sector is our social licence. If we don't get this done, whether it's Boeing, whether it's Bombardier, Embraer or Airbus, if we don't get this done, we don't have a future. So one of the things we've heavily invested in is working with NASA on a truss-based transonic wing design for an aeroplane. Before the end of this decade, we'll be in a position to know whether we can move forward into production of that aeroplane, perhaps with an open rotor engine, and that will should deliver us about 30% improvement in efficiency. And then at the same time, through everything we do, the construction of our factories, the use of energy, water management, waste management, every digital engineering, digital twinning, model-based engineering, synthetic training, sustainable aviation fuels, biofuels, hydrogen, electricity, all of these things are being heavily invested in right now by Boeing because that is our future. And by the way, the airlines themselves as customers and in the defence space are increasingly asking not just about the capability of the aircraft, they want to know what the greenhouse gas footprint looks like. Yep. And we've worked with MIT and some other very large research institutions in producing a visual and data analytical model called Cascade, which will give you the opportunity to look at your flights, look at the aircraft that you're on, look at the distance. What's the life cycle greenhouse footprint of you using that particular aircraft, those particular fuels on that particular trip? This is where our future lies.
Okay, so just to wrap us up, each of you has 15 seconds to tell me what you think the most important thing to look out for in the industry in 2024 is and why. Starting with you, Ambassador.
Well, I think application of artificial intelligence, because the problem there, I think, is also the human absorption capacity of what we're looking at. And it is exciting on one side, frightful on the other side.
Dr. Nelson.
The introduction and application of technology and human intellectual skills and training for producibility, safety, quality, and delivering, whether it's in defence or commercial sector, when we say we're going to.
Pierre.
I would say global collaboration, particularly when it comes to AI. We need to bring all the know-how that we know is going on in the world. We've talked about it a lot here. By using all the data that we have in all the aerospace companies, have collected data for a long time, but now we need to make this real and use it as a tool. And we can do that if we collaborate across the planet, particularly with universities that have so much knowledge.
Your Excellency.
I would say research and development, and emphasize on most of the points as well. Through international collaboration, we can do better for everybody.
Excellent. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me today. That wraps up our session. And ladies and gentlemen, please make them feel welcome and cast your attention back to the center stage for our next discussion. In just a few moments' time, we're joining Sir John Chipman, the Executive Chairman of the International Institute for Strategic Studies. Thank you again for listening in.